Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode, I want to say 24, but I could be wrong. I have lost count, unfortunately. But I want to say episode 24 of the Pop Punk Podcast with me, T Will Official, and my GS co host, Mr. Daddy Must. Say what's up, sir?
What's up, everybody? It's good to be back once again. How are you, Mr. Will?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing solid, no real complaints, and I can confirm that this is episode 24, by the way.
Okay, I thought so, but I wasn't sure. Thank you for confirming for me, sir. And today we have a topic that I'm actually really excited to talk about. But before we do that, we're going to be going through like what we listened to this week. But before we even go through that, I just want to say once again, we will be moving the episodes on from the T Will official channel to its own dedicated channel starting February 1st. The channel has now been made. It is just called Pop Punk Podcast. February 1st, everything's going to be moving from this channel. That channel is not getting deleted, it's just getting moved. So the episodes on this channel, the T Will official channel, will be getting deleted, but then they'll be uploaded on the Pop Punk Podcast channel. Well, they probably won't be getting deleted. I'll probably make them private, but for you guys, it's the same deal. On the T Will official channel, we're going to be very, very soon having some gaming content coming up. So if that sounds interesting to you guys, stick around. And I figured, you know what? Instead of having the podcast episodes in here with the gaming episodes and making everything a mess, I really should have made a dedicated channel for the podcast in the first place, but better late than never. So February 1st, everything will be moved over to the dedicated channel, the Pop Punk Podcast channel. Prior to episode, I want to say, if all goes to plan, that'll be episode 26 on February 2nd. That'll be the first new episode on the dedicated Pop Punk Podcast channel. I'll probably say that again at the end of the episode, but I know how it be. I know sometimes people don't make it to the end, especially when the episode's long. I don't know how long this episode's going to be. Obviously, we're only 2 minutes in. But if it is a longer one, even if it's a shorter one, it's still going to probably be about an hour long. So I understand not everybody makes it through the entire episode. So I just figured I'd let you guys know at the start. The channel will be linked in the description. And yeah, with that out of the way, we can finally get into the episode. So what have you been listening to this week, sir?
Well, let me just check my Spotify real quick just to kind of give you the list of albums I've been listening to on there.
Okay,
But
very nice.
in my car rides, I've been typically just been listening to more of the usual, your newfounds, Saves the Day, early November with a little bit of, starting line in there. Say like you mean a starting line to be exact.
A
But on
man of tradition.
yes, and then Spotify, I've been listening to Census Fail, Silverstein, and my James playlist, and of course I've been dabbling into the Fight Fair Settle the Score album I've been listening to, and a little bit of just some chunk also thrown in there as well.
Very nice.
How about yourself?
So me, I actually rediscovered a band that I listened to a lot back in like 2009. They're called Dead by April, and they are a metalcore band. But what I like about them is they have extremely poppy choruses, which sound really awesome. I actually remembered them as like kind of butt rocky, but I was wrong. And I can only speak for their first album. I haven't listened to anything past the first album. It's kind of like a raunchy wasteland discotheque situation. I'm kind of scared to listen to anything else because album one is so good. But I do enjoy quite a bit the songs off of album one. There's a really nice contrast between like the heavy music and like the screaming, because a lot of the they have a little less screaming than the contemporary metalcore band, but there is still screaming in there. So there's a nice little contrast between that and the super poppy, like clean vocals. It sounds amazing.
I am currently.
Go ahead.
I was going to say I'm currently reading their Wikipedia page, and they are from Sweden, just like I believe that other band you just mentioned.
Raunchy.
No, that disco. Yeah, but disco. What?
Yeah, Raunchy.
Yeah, I believe is that band from Sweden as well?
I believe they're from Scandinavia, but I could be wrong.
Denmark.
Okay.
Oh, by
Um,
the way, Scandinavia is just a section of Europe, so they're both technically Scandinavian, but yeah.
okay. So anyway, yeah. So I've been listening to them a little bit. I've been listening to them a lot the past couple days. I didn't think they were gonna be on my on repeat because I only rediscovered them Thursday. But they actually do have a couple songs in my on repeat. I guess it's because I've been listening to them so much. Other than that, I've been still kind of on my little hair metal kick, and then I've been listening to the January Jams playlist I made on Spotify. I've been listening to a little bit more Less Than Jake. Not so much their new album though, which I know I have to because we will be doing an album review for that. Hopefully next week if all goes according to plan. But I haven't really been listening to a whole lot of the new album, but I have been listening to quite a bit of Less Than Jake. Um, and just yeah, and then just a bunch of random stuff that's in my January Jams playlist, like Settle Your Scores, City Lights. Um, but listening to a little bit of this band called 1 Mile Left, who you might know them on YouTube. They did the "I Miss You" cover in the style of 1999 Blink, but on Spotify they don't have that, which is understandable because it's probably a licensing little issue there. But they do have a bunch of originals on Spotify, and I enjoy the song "Keep Me Up" quite a bit.
Very
I've
nice.
been
Very
also listening to a little bit of Sunrise Skater Kids. In particular, I've been listening to the song "Pit Warrior" a lot, which is a very enjoyable, funny song.
yes, and relatable too.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Sunrise Skater Kids is well, it's Jared Alonge, who's like a I guess comedy YouTuber, but he's also like a music YouTuber. He's kind of like both. He's kind of like he did those videos where it's like every pop punk vocalist, every metalcore vocalist, which were very funny. But he has like 3 or 4 different joke bands, where it's like like the music's like real serious, like whatever genre he's in. Like Sunrise Skater Kids is pop punk, so it's like legitimate pop punk. Like if you just listen to the instrumentals, it would just sound like pop punk bangers. But then the lyrics are just about like Pit Warrior is about like the type of dude who goes to shows just to hurt people in the mosh pit. Um, and then he's got Sunrise Skater Kids, which is it's pop punk, and then he's got Canadian Softball, which is like his emo little parody, and then he's got Amidst the Graves Demons, which is metalcore, and then he's got Swag Chode, which I believe is supposed to be crunkcore.
Very nice.
And it's all good stuff. But that's pretty much been the basic rundown of what I've been listening to this week. My top 5 on repeat. There's a couple songs here I don't quite agree with because I think they're just kind of holdovers from the top songs of 2020 playlist. But like I haven't really listened to them a lot lately. But there's a few songs in this playlist that I do also agree with. So my top 5 is Shoebox Memories by Better Luck Next Time, which that's one of the ones I don't really agree with. I actually haven't really been listening to them a whole lot lately. Not, obviously I love them, so it does check out. It is something that would be in my on repeat, but just lately I feel like I haven't really listened to them, so I don't really know why that's my number 1. What Can I Say by Dead by April, which I do agree with that because I've been listening to that a lot these past couple days. Coming Under Fire by Def Leppard, which also I do agree with, because even though I haven't like particularly put that song on a whole lot, it is in my January Jams playlist, so it's just been playing a lot over the past couple days. Therefore I Party by Patent Pending. That's What She Said by the Friday Night Boys, which both of those songs I don't really know if I agree with, because again, I think they're just holdovers from the top songs of 2020. Again, not to say anything bad about the songs, because normally they do show up on my own repeat, but just again, recently this week I feel like I haven't listened to those songs quite a bit. And then to turn this into a top 7, because that's just what we do. Losing You by Dead by April and American Blues by Sparks the Rescue, which I do agree with both of those because I have listened to those quite a bit lately.
Very interesting / somewhat diverse top 7 you got there.
Yeah, my the music I've been listening to lately has been very diverse. I got the obviously the pop punk, that's never gonna change, and then lately I've also had the metalcore and the hair metal.
Yeah, so I mean it's
So
Pretty
yeah,
awesome.
it's been a little all over the place. But with that out of the way, we can get into the main meat of the episode, which is, I mean, if you're watching this, like you've already saw the episode title, so you know what it's about. We are, in my opinion, in a new era of pop punk, and by that, so to really dive into what I mean, I'm gonna give you guys a little history lesson. So, pop punk obviously in itself is a subgenre. It's a subgenre of punk music. Um, but pop punk has had many, I guess you would say subgenres over the years, and they all have like their own. It's got kind of its own eras because it's kind of changed a lot from like, I guess you could say as far back as the '70s all the way to today. So there's been like 4 or 5 different eras. Um, I'll go more in depth with them later, but just for now, I'm just gonna kind of give a basic rundown. Like there's the I guess prototype era from I guess like the late '70s, like with the Ramones and like the Buzzcocks and shit, where I don't really particularly see any of that stuff as pop punk. But it's definitely a lot poppier than their contemporaries, and it does kind of lay the foundation for what would come later. Um, I think that would kind of last all the way through like the '80s with like the Descendants and Generation X, and I would even say a little bit like Billy Idol's solo stuff. Some of those songs. Um, and then in the '90s there was like the kind of what I call the skate punk era, where there really wasn't a whole lot differentiating it from skate punk, except maybe just like a little more melody in the vocal melodies. And that would be like bands like MXPX, NoFX, No Use for a Name, Millencolin. Basically all the big skate punk bands from the '90s. And then that leads into what I call the top 40 era, which is the late '90s, early 2000s, the peak of the popularity with obviously Blink 182, Sum 41, Newfound Glory, Bowling for Soup, Simple Plan, Good Charlotte, that whole lot.
Yes, pretty much any band that you see on the "Hey, do you remember these songs from 2002?" And it's just all those pop punk
Yeah.
songs that were legit platinum selling albums.
Yeah. And then after that, there was the mall emo era slash the post hardcore era, because I would definitely say that little mid 2000s run over there, that's probably when I would say post hardcore and pop punk had the most spillover. And that was bands like My Chemical Romance, which they're definitely on the more mall emo side, but their first album is pretty legitimate post hardcore. I actually enjoy quite a bit off of their first album. There's My Chemical Romance, Hawthorne Heights, fucking Senses Fail.
More for Sleep.
Yeah, Armor for Sleep. Um, and then on the more like mall emo, like top 40 side of things, there was also still My Chemical Romance, Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco, Paramore.
And then other bands just went mall emo for the money, like Good Charlotte and shit like that.
Yeah, Good Charlotte.
Who
Simple
messed with
Plan, you
mall
didn't
emo.
really hear it too much in the music, but if you look at Simple Plan in like 2003, they definitely got with the image.
Mess, they
Mest
dropped the mall
released their
emo album
magnum
'05,
opus.
Photograph.
Yeah. And then after that, I want to say like after mall emo comes the neon pop era, which would be that was like I would say 2007 to like 2010, maybe 2009, and that's just basically when pop punk got really like poppy. There was like usually a lot of synthesizers. And then that would be like bands like Forever the Sickest Kids, the Friday Night Boys, and then there's also a whole bunch of what I would consider neon adjacent bands, which would be like they're not full neon in my opinion, but they are pretty poppy compared to like other pop punk, which would be like Mayday Parade, Boys Like Girls, All Time Low, and then kind of concurrently with with the neon pop era would be the easycore era.
Due to what we aim for.
Yeah, Cute is what we aim for. That's another like I guess neon adjacent band. But then came the easycore era, which was kind of like that one was kind of weird because it was kind of going with the neon era. Like they kind of I would say lasted almost exactly the same. I would say maybe 2007 to like 2011, and that was like 4 year, yeah, 4 years strong. Fucking like City Lights, um,
Chunk.
Chunk No Captain Chunk, um, A Day to Remember, which they always get lumped in with the easy core bands. Even though they're kind of a little different because I feel like they have songs that are either pop punk or it's like full pop punk or like full metalcore, but they get lumped in with the easy core bands a lot. So, and then
Yeah.
after that, I'm borrowing this term from Punk Rock MBA. After the easy core era comes the sad boy era, which would be like like the Wonder Years, Neck Deep, Stories So Far, Man Overboard, Turnover, well, early Turnover.
Yeah, a lot of these bands kind of can go in different categories. The Wonder Years were also in the easy core era
That's
as well.
true. Yeah, the Wonder Years' first album was an easy core album. It was called Get Stoked on It, and it had some bangers.
Yes, yes, yes.
But anyway, yeah, and then that's actually a good segue because after the sad boy era comes an era that I only think is considered pop punk because a lot of the sad boy bands went this way. But the soft grunge era, where basically everything sounded like that fucking Smashing Pumpkins song today. And like Turnover was one of them.
Balance and Composure.
Balance and Composure, and that's kind of really the only ones I know because I'm not super into it, so I don't really listen to it.
Title Fight. I'm just trying to remember bands that people used to love back in 2013.
Yeah, Title Fight. Which I think that was another like sad boy era band that went soft grunge, which just proves my point that I think that's pretty much really the only reason why it gets lumped in as a pop punk sub genre. Because really, it has more in common with like 90s alternative and like the real emo and finger quotes, like those old dudes that are always like, you listen to Hawthorne? That's not real emo. It sounds more in line with that, but it gets lumped in as pop punk for God knows why. But then after, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, yeah. As you said earlier, they just because the bands that's just what they were in 2009. They were just pop punk bands. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
exactly. Yeah, and after the soft grunge era, like there was kind of really nothing new going on in pop punk for a while. Really all it was just, like older bands putting out new albums. And that was pretty much it. But then, last year, that changed. MGK put out, Tickets to My Downfall. Juice WRLD put out a song that was just pure pop punk, Man of the Year. That Jaden on TikTok is making waves. And I didn't want to like talk too early because it was a little too early to tell, but I see a lot of like, a lot of that, like they're like making waves. And then there's like the emo rappers, which is kind of like, I guess, new era pop punk adjacent. Because like some of it, I wouldn't really categorize as pop punk, but then some of it, such as, like Lil Lotus or like a few Juice WRLD songs, are definitely very, very heavily inspired by pop punk. And I think we're in a new era, and the new era, I don't know what to call it. We can either call it Top 40 2.0 because it is like like MGK's album was like number one. And then obviously, Juice World had a lot of success. May he rest in peace. Or another phrase I came up with as a joke, but the more I realized, the more it kind of makes sense. New pop punk, like NU, like new metal. I brought it up as a joke because like new metal, but
Mm-hmm.
this new wave of pop punk has a lot of hip hop elements, just as new metal brought a lot of hip hop influence to metal. And
Okay. Okay.
it just it seems like there's a lot of people making waves. What do you think about that, Mr. Daddy Mush?
About new as an NU pop punk.
Well, I'm talking about like what do you think about like a new era brewing?
Well, I hope that there is a new era. I really do. Because I really want to see like new bands making waves, and I always feel like it's hard for that to happen. And it's not so much more like because there's still new pop punk bands being made, still releasing songs, obviously, and not just bands that are already established or artists that are already established or even emo rappers. Like there are just legit just new pop punk bands. But I feel the issue with like that seems to be that it seems to be more of the culture and the scene seems to be has been fizzling out for many years now where I hope that the scene can revitalize locally and on a national scale just because I mean well I always say like the scene has been dying even before COVID so this doesn't even consider coronavirus it's just more just in general I always feel like the scene is just especially where we live like the local music scene is like non-existent you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And I also feel like with Warp Tour ending, I feel like it's hard for like these newer like bands that already aren't established enough to play like PLA venues all the time. I feel like they're gonna have a more of a hard time breaking through. You know what I mean? To just even like moderate, somewhat success.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're definitely making a point there. But like I was meaning more like with the artists that are making waves, like MGK, Lil Lotus, um, Juice World, rest in peace, and like Lil Aaron and shit. Like that kind of seems to be where I guess at least on the mainstream side, pop punk is kind of heading. And you know what? I'm all for it. It is a little bit different, but you know what? Like it's got its own sound, just like all the other eras kind of had their own sound. This one's kind of having its own sound too, like a little bit more of like a hip hop influenced sound, but a lot of it is still, very, very what's the word I'm looking for? It's still very, like you could tell it's pop punk.
It's in the realm. It's in the ballpark.
Yeah, like that. I don't even
Brand
like
different.
you by Lil Lotus. That's pop punk over a hip hop beat. The song
Yes,
"Drugs" by Lil Aaron, that just is a pop punk song. Like I think he is supposed to be like an emo rapper, but that just is a pop punk song. Like there's not even there's like one part where there's like a little hip hop beat, but other than that, it's just like guitars and drums.
yeah, yeah, definitely for there. But I do love the Little Lotus. I don't even like you album artwork, by the way. Oh, just to
Yes,
kind of
I
just
remember
since you brought that up.
he sends me a text. He says I unironically enjoy the Lil Lotus album artwork.
It's, like, sickening. It's like it's both ironically and unironically. I love it. But yeah, I mean, it would be cool. That's why I am happy that little Mr. Lotus, I will use Mr. Lotus because I respect him.
Okay.
Uh, I do enjoy his music, and I do enjoy that he is on Epitaph Records, which is, for terms of popularity and the music scene, it is a big deal for, the music scene, and, I just feel like him being popular is just great because then hopefully his, If I Die First gets even more popular, and then hopefully all these other emo rappers start making like bands and everything, and that'll be awesome. But yeah, I'm just happy that,
Yeah, and you know what? That is one thing that we definitely need to
we're in
talk about. We do need to talk about "If I Die First," which I mean, they're not. They're I wouldn't consider them pop punk.
They're definitely
They're definitely
post-hardcore.
they're post hardcore. They are. I would consider them. They're like 2006 MySpace post hardcore.
Yes, and I love it.
um,
It's
but post hardcore and pop punk, they're very very much adjacent to each other. Like they've
yeah,
always really been a part of the same scene, and there's a lot of spillover, especially in the mid 2000s, where like post hardcore bands had like some lighter pop punk songs and vice versa.
yes, and
Like
even in
like
like,
Silverstein had "Giving Up," which is just a pop punk song.
or even
Um,
even on the new Silverstein album, "Say Yes," that's just a straight up just sounds like a song to be from 2008.
yeah, and so it's they've always been adjacent, a part of the same scene, and in a lot of cases spill over. Um,
Yes,
and
members
you
and
know what? I think "If I Die First" is awesome because it's a super group. It's Lil Lotus, and I believe at least one or two other emo rappers. And then it's also members from first to last. I think it's actually the entire band minus Skrillex, if I'm not mistaken. But I could be wrong.
uh, yes, we'll continue that. And I'll be doing some research, so
And
as we could.
yeah, and the music, like there's like no catch to it. Like it is just pure like 2006 post hardcore. Like yeah, if you like from first to last, you're gonna like If I Die First. If you like just post hardcore in general, you're probably gonna like If I Die First. And I think that's really cool because I definitely noticed more recently um the focus has been kind of shifting from bands to single artists, which like I get, it's almost like a sign of the times, so like I get it. But it is pretty cool that like they're just this band. I mean, they are a super group, but they're still like a band that's coming out, making waves, just playing music that would not be out of place in 2006. And I think the fact that there is emo rappers in the band could make them very influential onto like a new generation, even if they don't become massively popular. I think they could definitely be one of those bands where they're more influential. And again, I know it's a little too early to tell, but yeah, that's I really want to see If I Die First make some waves. If not mainstream popularity waves, then I would love to see them make some like influence type waves.
Yes, just to kind of confirm it, the only person from first to last is Travis Richer, who is the guitarist from first to last.
Okay, then who's the rest of the band then?
Uh,
Obviously, I know
Garrett,
Lil Lotus.
well, you got Little Lotus. I believe Little Zubin is the other vocalist. You got Ned Ned Arb, Nedarb, Nedarb or Nedarb, I don't know. And then members of Ghosty Mane.
Oh, very nice.
So there's that.
Okay,
So
so
there that.
there's a lot more emo rappers in the band than I was thinking. I was thinking it was more from first to last. And you know
Yeah, it's just
what? You know what? That actually makes me a little more excited because if it was just like Lil Lotus and like one other guy and then a bunch of members from first to last like that, like it makes sense that they would play what they play. But I think the fact that there's a bunch of emo rappers just in a band just making 2006 era post hardcore in 2021, but their EP dropped in 2020, so making like this MySpace era music in 2020, that blows my mind even more, and that just makes me want to see them even more successful.
yes. And as I mentioned last week, that was definitely, in my opinion, the most pleasant surprise of 2020 music was If I Die First.
Yeah, and I think my one of my most pleasant surprises was probably just that song "So What" by Jaden. Now I haven't really listened to a whole lot of his other stuff yet, but that that song I think is kind of what I think of when I'm thinking of like this new era of pop punk and like what the kind of defining sound would be, where it's got the pop punk sound, um, maybe a little bit on the poppy side, but it's definitely, it's very unashamedly pop punk. But then it does have like the hip hop beats in there. Um, I think Travis Barker's actually on the drums too, which is pretty cool. Like again, mad respect to Travis Barker because he is doing what he can to keep the scene alive, and I think it's paying off because, like as I said, new era brewing. If it's not already here, it's definitely brewing. So I think it's definitely paying off. And then just that song in general, that's just I think it's got all the characteristics of like it's got the hip hop influence, but it's still pop punk. Like it's not an emo rap song by any stretch of the words. It is definitely a pop punk song. Um and that I think that would probably be that or MGK would probably take my most pleasant surprise. But that's a little off topic. I just wanted to shed some light on Jaden real quick because I know I feel like a lot of people might find him a little bit cringy because he is making his waves on TikTok. But I mean honestly, TikTok is a great way to get your music out there, and B, whether it's cringy or not, it's still pop punk it's popular pop punk in 2020. Again, the song came out in 2020. I know it's 2001 or 2021. Oh my god, I sent us back 20 years. Um, but the song did release in 2020, so it's a pop punk song that is mainstream in 2021. So whether you think it's cringy or not, it's keeping the scene alive. That's my opinion on that.
Okay, fair enough. So we already talked about, I guess, the new era, and I guess it's hard to judge an era that you're not even sure exists yet, or is at the very infancy of its stage. So I guess
It's definitely in its infancy. I can't wait to see what 2021 brings because we're all talking about artists and songs that released in 2020. Um,
yes.
before we do move on, because I know where you're steering the conversation, and I am very excited to talk about that. But before we steer our conversation there, I did want to say that I do think the key to the new pop punk era is maybe not necessarily MGK, but just established artists, particularly from established hip hop artists, um, putting out pop punk albums because, like you said, there's always a tons of like local pop punk that make its way into my daily mix or my Discover Weekly, or just from generally browsing Spotify. And the songs are great, but it's very hard to not only make a name for yourself, but it's very hard to try and keep a genre alive when you're not already established. So I think established artists like MGK and I mean, I guess he's not really established as an artist, but Jaden was already established, I think, as a TikTok star. So I think these already established artists getting into the genre is really what's injecting the new life to it. And
Yes. And,
I just what do you think about that, sir?
I mean, if they can get people to start buying guitars and get more of, I guess, the quote unquote general public or the quote unquote normies into the genre of pop punk and no longer be because I consider it more of a niche genre now. So if it can
Unfortunately,
so that they can branch it out and make it like other people who normally don't listen to the Starline and Saves the Day and Newfound Glory constantly, and more power to them and good for them. It may not be my favorite music to listen to, it may not be my favorite era, but I do appreciate it at the end of the day.
Well, spoiler alert for the next section. I definitely like it better than soft grunge.
Well, yeah, for sure. Yes, but I still but it's hard for me to judge a quote unquote era that is still in the beginning. You know what I mean, Killer? So ask me again in 2 years what I think about this, and then I'll give you a more
Yeah.
detailed approach.
And it just makes me excited because I do think we're in not only a new era, which is always exciting, because it's a new era with a new sound. I mean, it's still pop punk, but it's got a new defining sound that like you wouldn't hear in like mall emo or neon or easycore. But it's got its own like unique sound, so that's exciting. But then it's the fact that it's also has the mainstream appeal is incredibly exciting to me, because yeah, pop punk in 2019 is pretty much where hair metal was in 2005. Irrelevant with just the big names keeping it not even really alive, but just the big names, doing their thing. Like
Yeah, like I
Blink.
would say, like Blink will no matter what they're gonna sell just because they're already established entertainment superstars. So it doesn't really matter if they're pop punk or not. You know what I mean? They're gonna sell. They're
Oh,
gonna
well, yeah, Blink, Blink is the pop punk just to keep uh the hair metal comparison. Blink is the pop punk as like Motley Crue or Bon Jovi. I'll say Bon Jovi is the hair metal. They're just bigger than the genre, so it doesn't really matter what's going on with the genre. They're gonna survive.
yeah. It's like the fans of those bands are gonna exist. They're not. I don't really think they're making new fans personally. It's like like Bon Jovi and Def Leppard and all them, they're still gonna play in stadiums and arenas.
Yeah,
It's the new bands that are gonna be the ones that are gonna have a tough time.
yeah, absolutely. But that's where it was in 2019. And 2020 kind of threw a little curveball. One of the rare nice surprises from 2020
Yes,
was the
yes.
little curveball it threw to pop punk. And again, as you said, it is in its infancy. So let's not say yeah it's here yet, but I think a mainstream revival is brewing, which as we've said before on the podcast, I have talked about it many times. I didn't think it was going to happen this early, but I did think a mainstream revival was going to happen, and it does look like that's kind of happening. So with that out of the way, we talked about the future. Now I wanted to talk about the past, since I did at the start of the episode, I did give a basic rundown of the different genres, or the different eras, I should say, of pop punk. So I guess now let's talk about our favorites from each era. We're just gonna go down the list from each era. So we're gonna start with the prototype era. And this one, I know this one's gonna be kind of a little tough because I think you're on the same page as me. Where like we don't really listen to it for our own pleasure, but we do respect it. But we
Yes.
don't like. I'm not cranking out the Ramones just because I'm in the mood for some Ramones.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely, for sure.
So
So, I mean, what's my favorite?
yeah,
Uh,
from the prototype era, I'll let you start this off.
hmm. I mean, this is gonna be the most cop out answer, but I'm just gonna go with the Ramones just because I know most of I know way more of their songs than actually. I'm gonna go with let me Google real quick. What year an album came out? Never mind. Let's just go with the Ramones for the 70s.
Well, I will say it is for the whole prototype. I'm considering 70s and 80s
Okay, then let's
because
go.
I don't really know where to lump like Descendants and stuff like that, because I wouldn't quite put them in with the whole skate punk era from the 90s, but so I'm just
Let's
put
just
that this is all the prototype era. I would say like 1970 like 6 to like 1991. We'll
okay. Let's
say.
go with either. I'm gonna go with the Descendants or Screeching Weasel that with that era
Okay.
and because there are some songs by Screeching Weasel that I think are legitimately just like fun and good songs. I mean a few. I do mean like few. Um, the Descendants, I always just lump them up higher than I actually do in a vacuum, just because if you listen to like Blink, that's like their favorite band, and like Newfound, like they like the Descendants growing up. So just because of that, I gotta show respect where respect is due.
I do enjoy their song Clean Sheets quite a bit. Like, just beyond respecting it. Like, I actually legitimately enjoy that song.
Yes, and I guess Screeching Weasel. I do love the song "Hey Suburbia." That song is just pop punk. Sounds like Alistair. Uh, but I yeah. So I guess let's go with Descendants and Screeching Weasel for my favorite. I guess of the first wave or
Okay.
first batch.
Okay, yeah, the
But
prototype wave. So mine probably will be a bit of a cop out, but it should come as no surprise to anybody that listens to the podcast. I know he's not a dedicated pop punk artist, but my favorite from the prototype era would definitely have to be Billy Idol, because Dancing with Myself is just a song I legitimately, it's not just a song I enjoy, it's a song I actually really love. A song that I put on just of my own free will, not just because like I respect it, but it's because I actually really love it. Now, if that doesn't count, because he is not an established pop punk artist, he is typically associated with new wave or hard rock. If he does not count, then my favorite would probably be from the prototype era, would probably be Generation X, which was his punk band before he went solo, and they pretty much just sound like the Ramones. They're like a carbon copy of the Ramones, but since I genuinely really like Billy Idol, I just kind of like it a little bit better because it's just Ramones music, but with Billy Idol's voice. If that
yes.
makes any sense, like musically they sound very similar to the point where I think people just call them like the British Ramones. Um, so that would probably be my favorite from the prototype era. But there is some Ramones songs I do actually really enjoy. I think the song "Daytime Dilemma" by the Ramones was way ahead of its time. It came out in 1984, and it sounds like a 2001 type deal. Like it says like 2002 remaster when I listen to it on Spotify, and like I could hear it coming out in 2002. So I definitely think the song "Daytime Dilemma" is way ahead of its time, and that is a song that I do legitimately enjoy.
Okay,
And,
okay.
and and I will say, Blitzkrieg Bop is a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine, just because I've known it for so long. It was in like Tony Hawk 3, and then it was in like Rock Band 1,
In the Jimmy Neutron
the
movie.
Jimmy Neutron movie. Yeah, so it's got some
I prefer
nostalgia for me. So for that, I definitely would consider that a guilty pleasure. And it's not like I don't like the Ramones; they just are a little bit too basic for my taste, but I do respect them.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I respect that.
I see. So that covers the prototype era. So now I guess we move on to the skate punk era from I'll say 91 to like 99. And I know these aren't strict time frames, because I know there are probably still skate punk bands today. And just like every era is gonna have its bands that last and its bands new bands that come out, and
Or bands that just kind of go into another genre.
yeah. So these aren't strict time frames, but I would say this was, I'm giving like rough outlines of like, when the genre was at its peak.
Okay, well, this is a very easy for me because
Yeah,
this is one of my all-time favorite albums.
it's pretty
We're
easy
going
for
Dude
me as
Ranch
well.
era Blink. We are going Dude Ranch era Blink 182 or Scott Raynor era Blink.
Okay. That is true, because for those that don't know, Blink's first two albums were definitely a part of that. Like, it's pop punk, but it's very skate punky sounding type pop punk.
I mean, Cheshire Cat, the genres on Wikipedia is, and I kind of disagree with this because I definitely think it's pop punk also, but it says punk rock, skate punk, and Dude Ranch has skate punk, punk rock, pop punk.
Yeah.
So
And and it definitely is very skate punky. So I
it's
would
fast as fuck.
Yeah, so that and those are very good albums, but I think my favorite overall skate punk band from that era would probably be MXPX. Um, which may be a little bit of a cop out answer because my favorite albums from them are from like the early 2000s when I think they kind of ditched the skate punk and were just more straightforward pop punk. But I do also like, like the Life in General album. I listen to My Mom Cleans My Room, Today Is in My Way, and Doing Time quite a bit off that album.
Very
Um,
nice, very nice.
and as I said before, I'm glad Mike Herrera is finally getting his due in Goldfinger. Uh, with getting some lead vocals or some co-lead vocals on the new album because that man has a beautiful voice where it's like kind of nasally, but it's not like deep, or it's deep, but it's like also nasally. It's not raspy. That's what I meant to say. Not raspy. Because as I said before, I enjoy deep voices. I just don't really like the raspy voices. And he's got a deep voice, but it's also nasally.
Yes, and I guess the other era, I guess you can kind of lump in with the skate punk was kind of more of like that like emo inspired melodic hardcore era that like Saves the Days, Can't Slow Down, or Lifetime's Jersey's Best Dancers and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Or
that's
even like
true.
or even like Get Up Kids from that era where it's like
Yeah, yeah. You
in this
know what? I'm glad you brought that up because I always forget to bring that up because I feel like aside from Saves the Day, I don't really listen to that era too much. So I am glad that you brought that up
yes,
because
I do enjoy like, I do like enjoy a good amount of songs from the 4 Minute Mile album by the Ghetto Kids, which came out in '97, which is under emo, indie rock, pop punk. And I also enjoy I mean this definitely is not a definitely more of an emo influenced release, but the very first Newfound Glory album, Nothing Gold Can Stay, definitely has a bit of that kind of emo-y melodic hardcore spunk to it compared to like Sticks and Stones.
okay, I'll abstain from saying my favorite band for this one because like I said from that era. I really only know Saves the Day's first few albums, and I enjoy them quite a bit. I don't have anything bad to say about those albums, in particular albums 2 and 3. Um, but I feel like it would just be a cop out to just have Saves the Day win by default.
True,
So
fair enough.
I
Fair
guess
enough.
I guess I did just kind of answer. Saves the Day wins by default.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, the very first Save the Day album is what I'm mostly talking about, where it has that kind of that melodic hardcore emo with the pop punk flair to it. But yes, but so your favorite skate punk is MXPX?
Without a doubt. Because, like, I've said it before, I don't dislike skate punk, but I definitely am not, like, super duper crazy about it. But MXPX, though, like, I put them on a lot, and I love quite a bit of their albums. And again, I do mostly listen to their more pop punk releases. But, yeah, I enjoy their, like, Life in General. Amazing album. Um, so they would probably be my favorite, yes.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Mine is definitely Scott Raynor era Blink, is because Dude Ranch for a very long period of time, I consider that my second favorite album ever.
And I do enjoy both of those albums. But I feel like MXPX they just nudged them out just a little bit because I would definitely say MXPX is more associated with skate punk, whereas Blink is definitely more associated with pop punk, as we will talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Where I mean, both bands have done both skate punk and pop punk, but yeah, I feel like MXPX is like just a little bit more associated with like the skate punk genre than Blink is. So like, Blink is definitely one of my all-time favorite bands, as opinionated as I might be on their post-Tom era. But they are definitely one of my all-time favorite bands. But I definitely, and I do enjoy both Dude Ranch and Cheshire Cat. But I think just as a whole, I just enjoy MXPX's like life in general just a little bit more.
Okay, that's respectable enough. Fair enough. I respect that.
So I guess with that out of the way, we can move on to Top 40 1.0,
Yes.
which would be, yeah, I guess like 99 to like 2004. Um, and for this one, I guess my answer kind of depends a little bit because my favorite band that got started in this era wasn't really a part of the top 40 mainstream popularity, at least not in America. But they're from the era, as in like they're from like their first release was actually in '98, but yeah, like their most prominent, like their most popular releases, I guess you could say, was in like 2000 and 2003. So my actual favorite from the era would be Zebrahead.
Okay.
If we're talking my favorite just of like the top 40 bands, that's a good question. If you asked me this a couple years ago, it would be Bowling for Soup without a doubt. But then I kind of realized more recently, like, if you listen to Drunk Enough to Dance, you kind of listen to everything by them.
Okay.
And
Okay.
like, they do have good songs. They do have very good albums. I still love them quite a bit. But I don't know if I could say they're my favorite anymore just because whenever they put out a new album, I don't really get excited because I know it's just going to kind of be more of the same.
Yeah, I mean, they're not like my favorite band, but I do feel that sentiment. Like whenever like you tell me like Bone for Soup is releasing new music, like it's one of those things where it's just like it's in the back of my head, but I don't actually physically go on my way to check it out. But with Zebrahead, I'm curious. I check it out right away.
Yeah, especially now because now I feel like their music's gonna get a little bit better since they have their metal outlet. Because I will say there was a period, Brain Invaders in particular, kind of ruined my love for Zebrahead for a little bit. Like I used to not want to call them like my favorite band or anything because like Zebrahead, like Brain Invaders was just such a bad album. It's a thrash metal album, and I don't like thrash metal. But but then when I started listening to their older stuff again, particularly, like Playmate of the Year, MFZB, and like Phoenix, which are probably my three favorite albums by them, I get reminded of why I love them so much.
Yeah.
So Zebra is definitely my number one. If we're just talking strictly the top 40, um, probably still Bowling for Soup, just because even if all their new songs do sound just like Drunk Enough to Dance Part 8, that doesn't change the fact that like those like three albums in like the early to mid 2000s, like Drunk Enough to Dance, Hangover You Don't Deserve, and Great Burrito Extortion Case, that doesn't change the fact that those three albums are awesome.
Yes. 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 For
And I
sure.
do enjoy their more comedic approach to lyrics, which is something I feel like you don't really get. And like, I mean, like a lot of bands, like they have their sense of humor and all, but I feel like Bowling for Soup, that's like just a part of their whole shtick. Is they make songs that like they're not full joke songs, but they have just a little bit of a comedic edge over
Hmm.
their contemporaries. And I do, as somebody who does enjoy comedy quite a bit, as I've said before, Adam Sandler is my favorite actor. I can appreciate that.
Yeah. What would you say your top three or top five, just like in general, favorite releases from any of the bands from that came out from '99 to '04? It doesn't have.
Oh my
What
god,
would you
you're
say your
putting me
favorite?
on the spot.
Hey man, that's what I do here, man. I Google stuff and I put people on the spot.
Well, you know what? While I think about that, you go ahead and because I know what your favorite is from this era, but why don't you tell the listeners your
Well,
favorite
to
from
be
this era?
fair, I mean I can say this is my favorite band from any era because they're newfound glory and God for in newfound glory can't do anything wrong. But yeah, newfound glory is definitely my favorite band. That definitely from this era. I mean, I will definitely say they're definitely their commercial peak. Most bands are from this era. So I mean, Sticks and Stones and Catalyst were like number three and number four on the Billboard charts, and Sticks and Stones is a platinum selling album. So like definitely Newfound Glory is definitely my favorite from this era, and their self-titled album, which came out in 2000, is definitely just like is my all-time favorite album. So that's always fantastic. But a um but other bands I love from this era is like Alistair's Last Stop Suburbia is amazing in my opinion. Uh Homegrown's Kings of Pop, I also enjoy quite dearly. One of the best pop punk albums of all time came out in this era from 2002. The Star Line Say It Like You Mean It. Um, and I guess on the more of a quote unquote mainstream wave, I do love Simple Plans, No Pads, No Helmets, Just Balls, and I do enjoy as commercial and no shame about it. They don't care. They just care about the money. I do love Good Charlotte quite a bit, though. They
I,
are just
I,
funny as well. Just thing to talk about just because they're the
well,
Band
hey,
Brothers.
you know what? You know what? At the same time, though, gotta chase that bag. I respect it.
Oh, I know, but I just love how like blatantly about how like how like they don't even try to hide it. It's just amazing. I love
Yeah,
it.
my favorite that you showed me is they're like out here protesting, like the like meat is murder.
Yeah, they're
And
legit protesting KFC. They're on a
yeah,
PETA. Now,
yeah, then they're getting sponsored by fucking KFC.
yeah, they got a straight up just like you got them holding buckets of chicken, looking all crazy at it. But then obviously the big ones. Blink's Enema's amazing album, and like it's definitely in my opinion the best era of pop punk. I'm sure you'll agree. I'm sure most people will
Uh,
agree.
Absolutely, because it's just, yeah, it's got a little something for everybody. Like if you enjoyed the skate punk from the '90s, and there was still a bunch of skate punk bands putting out like pop punk albums, like No Use for a Name put out a pop punk album in like 2001. MXPX, like their whole like early 2000s run was like all pop punk, and then obviously Blink, because they did have their roots in skate punk. So like, if you wanted something a little bit more skate punky, you had like No Use for a Name, you had your MXPX and everything. But then if you were like more interested in the newer stuff, or if you were like a teenager, like in that time frame, you had your Blink, your Newfound Glory, Sum 41, Good Charlotte, Simple Plan. It was very good times to be a pop punk
Yeah,
fan,
I
and
mean,
that's definitely when it was at its peak. Now I can't speak for the future because I do know Top 40 2.0 is definitely certainly making mainstream waves, hence the name Top 40 2.0. But yeah, no, 2001 2002 was just unprecedented. Just
yeah, I mean,
it,
Yellow
it was at
Card
its
was
mainstream peak. That pop punk songs were in like every teen comedy.
yeah, the American Pie soundtracks were essentially just a compilation of pop punk songs. I mean, freaking Yellow Card had an album that sold pretty much had an album that went double platinum with Ocean Avenue. I mean, my God.
Yeah, it was a great time to be a pop punk fan.
Yeah, because I mean, that's just when everybody was just like pop punk was just the shit back then.
So, all right, so to talk about my three favorite releases, so after putting some thought to it, it will probably be Playmate of the Year by Zebrod, because I love the early 2000s feel to that album. Like I can hear the very green grass and the very blue walls when I listen to that album. Take for that what you will. It is, you can tell that album came out in the year 2000, and I love it. Um, and then number two would probably be Enema of the State by Blink, just because it's pretty much launched the genre, at least as far as the mainstream is concerned. I guess you could argue either that or Dookie by Green Day. Um, and then my number three probably would be Drunk Enough to Dance, because as much as I say, like, if you listen to Drunk Enough to Dance, you pretty much listen to Blink for Soup's entire discography. It is a very good album. Um, and I feel like that's pretty much why I don't really get excited about their new releases, is because it's all just Drunk Enough to Dance Part 8, Part 9, Part 10. So I'm just sitting there thinking, well, I can just listen to Drunk Enough to Dance, and then it's the same as their new stuff, but it's better.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean that's how most of these bands are, unfortunately, to an extent.
Yeah, that's why, as much as I give Meth shit for their Easy Core album, I think about if they just put out like Destination Unknown Part 2, like, yeah, I wouldn't dislike it, but like it would just kind of get forgotten, right? It would just kind of be like I can just listen to Destination Unknown. But I think we've talked about the top 40 era. Let's move on to the
Yes, I guess
mall emo.
before we go on real quick, let me give my top 5 favorite albums from this era.
Okay.
Just because I didn't give it a list. Number 1, Newfound Glory, self-titled, amazing, fantastic, perfect. Number 2 would probably be I want to say the Starline, Say It Like You Mean It.
Okay.
Number 3 would be Enema of the State. 4, I would go Last Stop Suburbia by Alistair. My number 5 would probably be Saves the Days Through Being Cool.
Okay.
And
Well, I thought
that
you
is
put
my
that. I thought you put that in the whole emo melodic hardcore.
well, I was talking about Can't Slow Down. I put that in there just
Okay.
because that time frame. Because Through Being Cool, when that shit first dropped, they were just known as a Newfound Glory ripoff, even though they had more albums than Newfound Glory at that time. Doesn't make sense, but okay. Or if I'm not including Saves the Day, I would just go with I would honestly either go Mest, Destination Unknown, or Fall Out Boy's Take This to Your Grave. But I don't know if you want to put Take This to Your Grave into the mall emo category.
I would probably lump that into the mall emo category personally.
Okay,
Okay.
although it came out in May of 2003, my friend.
Well, that's actually what I was about to say. Is we can move on to the malt emo era, which I would say would be about 2003 to 2007.
Well, yeah, it was definitely having its roots planted in 03 because you gotta remember in 03, Yellow Card Ocean and Ocean Avenue did sell 2 million units in 03 and 04.
Yeah, and I mean, Bowling for Soup had their biggest hit in 2004. That's why I say the top 40 era didn't end until 2004, but the malt emo era began in 2003. I would say. And again, these aren't strict, dedicated. Like my word is an oak, but this is just a rough outline of like the peak popularity of each genre.
Yes.
But yeah, even though Take This to Your Grave, it's definitely straightforward pop punk. I think I would probably just lump that in just with the mall emo stuff, just because Fall Out Boy is most closely associated with mall emo.
Yeah, fair enough.
And so yeah, that actually leads us into the mall emo discussion where my favorite in the subgenre, I actually am not 100% sure. I do enjoy me some Hawthorne Heights, and I do also enjoy me some Senses Fail. One one artist that I very much enjoy their first album, but I can't in all good conscience put them in as my favorite because I really only like their first album and songs from their second album would be Escape the Fate.
Mm.
If we're talking about our favorite overall release from the mall emo era, probably would be Dying Is Your Latest Fashion.
Okay.
But I can't in all good conscience put Escape the Fate in as my favorite band from that era because I do like a few songs off This War Is Ours. In particular, I enjoy the songs The Flood, Ashley, and the title track, This War Is Ours. And then in parentheses, like the Guillotine Part 2. But after This War Is Ours, they definitely fall off for me. And their new stuff is like, I listen to it and it is just not good.
Actually just released a music video like 8 days ago that features Travis Barker.
Well, good for them, and good for Travis. I will actually probably listen to that just out of curiosity because Travis Barker, usually when he's featured on a song, is pretty good.
Okay.
Because
Yeah,
he's MGK's drummer during that whole album. He was on that Jaden song, which I enjoy quite a bit. But maybe I will check that out. But anyway, that's getting a little off topic. I think if I was to overall pick my favorite, it would probably be Senses Fail. Because I think they have the most they have the most albums in my like to dislike ratio. The only real albums I can honestly say I don't really like too much from Senses Fail is their metalcore era, and even then, I think I might just dislike the songs I heard because I do enjoy metalcore. Maybe if the rest of the albums are a little bit faster and a little bit better, I might even enjoy those. But I definitely didn't like the songs that I've heard. But that's about it. Everything else from them, I can honestly say that I enjoy.
Yeah, I would definitely say if we're talking about like post-hardcore or mall emo bands,
I just
I
kind of
love some.
lumped the two together because I feel like I feel like every single mall emo band definitely has at least a hint of post-hardcore in it, except maybe
To an
Panic at the
extent,
Disco.
to an extent. Because I mean, Fall Out Boy, I definitely not. I definitely don't. I mean, they do have a little bit of screaming, but I definitely don't consider it post-hardcore by any means.
Well, that's why I
But
said just a smidge, just
yes,
a
okay, fair enough. But
smidge.
I guess if I'm considering my favorite band from this era, I would probably have to agree with you because I would say that Let It Unfold You is probably my favorite post-hardcore album. Because I still listen to that constantly till this day, even though 16 years later. Like I feel like every song on there, like of course some aren't as good as others. I mean that's just how it is. But just because but I always feel like there's really not a song on that album I skip when I listen to it. So it's a great album. But other bands I like from this era. And by the way, spoiler alert, if we're ranking our favorite eras by how we like it, this is definitely my I'd probably say my second favorite era, believe it or not.
Yeah, I was actually gonna save that for the end. We'll just do our top threes.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, well then I'll say that for the end. But I do
Okay.
love like Armor for Sleep's What to Do When You're Dead and Dream to Make Believe albums. And I'm also, like I said before, I love Fall Out Boy's Take This to Your Grave quite a bit. Uh and even and in my opinion, I have a relatively a hot take considering when people think of Good Charlotte, they don't think of this album. But my favorite Good Charlotte album is The Chronicles of Life and Death, which is just oozes of capitalizing all that MCR wave.
With the
And then
songs such as "Predictable."
yes, that is a fantastic song. And and even bands that were pop punk were going into a darker direction with this era, like Mess's Photographs was definitely a mall emo-y album. Uh Homegrown's When It All Came Down. I don't even say it's even mall emo, that's just a broken hearted man.
That is
Um
true.
but it was definitely more on the emo side of things when it all comes down than it is on the pop punk side of things, like listening to Kings of Pop or any of the earlier stuff. And this is a very sad and serious album, or EP, I should say. But like, yeah, most bands were getting pretty like darker with their tone in this era because that's what was making money. But and there's also just post hardcore. But I love Silverstein. We're talking like strictly post hardcore. Like Silverstein is probably my second favorite post hardcore band.
Silverstein is very, very good.
And so I would say that but I would say my favorite album from this era would definitely be "Let It Unfold You" by Senses Fail.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
my favorite overall album would definitely be "Dying Is Your Latest Fashion" by Escape the Fate. That's got like literally everything. It's got songs that bordered more on post-hardcore, with like the "When I Go Out, I Want to Go Out on a Chariot of Fire." It's got songs that border a little closer to pop punk, with songs such as "Reverse This Curse," and I would even say "Not Good Enough for the Truth" and "Cliche." And it's got songs that are just straight up metalcore, such as "The Guillotine." Got a little bit of everything.
Very nice, yes. And also, I mean, what else was I saying? Oh yeah, and even Newfound Glory's Catalyst was. Say this for another section, but Newfound Glory's Catalyst, which came out in '04, was also a darker tone, which also kind of sprinkled the seeds for a future genre as well.
Yes, I was even gonna say I don't even know if I would consider this mall emo or even like mall emo adjacent, but it definitely plants the seeds for something else that we will talk about.
Yes,
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
I guess with that said, we can probably move on to Neon, right?
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yes, for
so
sure.
Neon, I fucking love Neon. It's super cheesy. It's a lot of it is very childish because it is marketed towards like 13-year-old girls. So a lot of it is very childish and goofy, but I fucking love this stuff, dude. I absolutely love it. My favorite, my favorite artist, and also probably my favorite release it would both go to the Friday Night Boys. My favorite release, I would actually have a tough time choosing between them. That's What She Said EP and the Off the Deep End full length, because they're both very good. I would probably give the edge to Off the Deep End, actually, because That's What She Said. You would think because it's an EP, there would actually be like less filler. But the last two songs kind of taper off for me. I don't like the last two songs as much as I like the first three. It's a 5-song EP. And I don't like the last. I mean, I enjoy the last two, but I definitely don't like them as much as I like the first three. Like, I don't ever really put them on unless I'm just listening to the whole EP by itself. So I would probably give it to Off the Deep End. Plus, Off the Deep End has a few of my favorite of their songs, such as Sorry I Stole Your Girl, How I Met Your Mother, no relation to the TV show, Permanent Heartbreak, Molly Makeout. There's tons of good stuff. I do also enjoy Forever the Sickest Kids quite a bit. In particular, I like I believe the album's called Underdog Alma Mater from 2008. And I do enjoy, what's the name of it? My Worst Nightmare is probably my favorite song by them. And then on the like the neon adjacent side of things, I do also quite enjoy Plain White Tees. I enjoy. Well, I can't really say I enjoy them so much, but I do enjoy their song "Our Time Now." I first heard that, believe it or not, in The Sims 2 on the metal station, which is funny because I would consider them neon adjacent because they don't really have the synths or anything like that, but they are pretty poppy compared to, say, Newfound Glory.
Yeah. Definitely, yes, for sure.
And I do also enjoy All Time Low quite a bit. I would consider them neon adjacent because they are definitely a little bit on the poppier side of things, but I don't really think they ever really dabbled with the synths.
I mean, maybe in their newer stuff that I didn't listen to, but definitely
yeah,
in that
I'm speaking strictly on their first three albums.
Yeah, like
their first album's almost like mall emo from what I heard of it.
Very nice.
And then their second album is just kind of pure pop punk. And I think their third album's when they kind of dabble in the neon adjacent.
Okay.
And I very much enjoy their first three albums. I forget the name of the first album, but then It's So Wrong It's Right, and then Nothing Personal.
Yeah. Okay, let me look it up real quick for you. Is a their first album is called, I believe it's called The Party Scene.
Yes. And I haven't listened to the whole album because it's not on Spotify or really on anything. I mean, I think a few of the songs are on YouTube. But yeah, I haven't really listened to that one too much. But from what I have heard, it sounds, I mean, it came out in 2005 and it sounds pretty mall emo-y.
Oh, just a little fun tidbit. They were trying to Fueled by Ramen, the record label, did not sign All Time Low because they recently signed another, I guess, neon adjacent band or just neon band in general. Cute Is What We Aim For, and they were not in a position to take on another band.
I bet that kind of bit them in the ass.
Yes,
because like they're good. I enjoy them. But
All
Time Low is definitely the most popular of the neon or neon adjacent scene.
Yes, and funny enough that the band that got them signed to Hopeless, the band that kind of got forgotten by time, which I enjoy quite a bit, Amber Pacific.
I do enjoy Amber Pacific as well.
This is a shame that Amber Pacific got them.
And then just a couple more bands I just want to talk about on the neon adjacent side, where I wouldn't really call them full neon, but they definitely are a lot poppier, would be We the Kings and one that I enjoy quite a bit, Ann Arbor. Believe it or not, I first heard Ann Arbor in Jersey Shore.
Very nice.
Yes, I remember Ronnie was hungover and they were playing Passion for Publication.
Very nice.
But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to talk about that while it was in my head, so I didn't forget before we moved on.
Yeah, I think I'm. See, here's the thing with me. I don't really the neon. You have a monopoly on the neon pop era because I'll be honest with you. The only time I ever listened to this genre of music is when I'm with you. I never put on neon for my own personal pleasure, although I do sometimes put on like the adjacent bands such as "Cute Is What We Aim For" with a few tracks and stuff like that, or the first two all time low albums, the first three I should say. But I can't
That's
really tell you what
upsetting.
my favorite neon band is, so my bad.
That's upsetting.
Hey man, that's just how I be sometimes.
But then, yeah, I guess with that said, we can move on to Easy Core, which what I would also say would probably be about 2007 to 2011.
At 2000, I would say it definitely died at 2013.
Yeah. My favorite for this era is probably City Lights. I enjoy City Lights quite a bit. In particular, their first EP and their first full length. Their second full length, there's a few good songs on it, but it it wasn't really an easy core album. It was definitely more of the sad boy wave, which makes sense. It came out in 2013.
Yeah.
Um, and there was I really do like the song "Truth Is" off of that album, but yeah, no, if we're just talking the best, it would definitely be their 2008 EP, whose name I can't remember right now, or "In It to Win It," their full length from 2011.
Well, luckily for you, I'm going to be googling that EP for you real quick. Uh, Rock Like a Party Star.
Thank you. Thank you. I couldn't think of it. But
Yeah.
I quite enjoy the songs Night Out on the Town and Confessions of an Escape Artist. And the song Just in Case, but I think I actually prefer the full length version of that song. I know that's like weird because most people do prefer the EP version. But the full length version was the first version I heard, and it's the same song. So when something's that similar, it really just comes down to what you heard first. And I heard the
Yeah.
full length version first.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Makes sense.
But yeah, that EP is some good stuff.
Hmm. So you would say City Lights is your favorite from this era?
Oh,
Is that
without
what
a
you're saying?
doubt. Without a
Okay.
doubt.
Very nice. Me. Let's see what my favorite easy core band is, or any band from this era. That's a tough question, personally, for me to answer. Um, there's a lot of bands I like from this era, such as 4 Year Strong, Set Your Goals, the first Wonder Years album, uh, Chunk No Captain Chunk, which
I'm actually glad you brought up Set Your Goals because I kind of see, like, if All Time Low is neon adjacent, I would almost see Set Your Goals as, like, easy core adjacent. Because I feel like they kind of do their own thing that's a little bit different from easy core.
definitely more quote unquote hardcore inspired. Well, a
Yeah.
lot of hardcore to
I
an
mean,
extent.
I mean, the song Gaia Bleeds is just a hardcore song.
Well, yeah, for sure. And then
There's
Summer Jam.
nothing pop punk about it.
And Summer Jam is just straight up pop punk.
Yeah.
It's really, you don't really have much of that shredding or crazy riffs you would get from like a 4 Year Strong or like a Chunk song. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. But they are easy core adjacent. I would definitely lump them in with this era if I had to lump them in with any era
I
because
mean,
it's
they were on the
definitely
Easy Core tour with Newfound Glory
that is
and
true.
4 Year Strong and A Day to Remember.
That is true, and we definitely have to talk about Newfound Glory while we talk about the easy core era because Newfound
Well,
Glory,
I was gonna be bringing them up anyway because I was gonna say Not Without a Fight is also one of my favorite albums, even though it's not true Easy Core.
yeah, because they are
The Godfathers,
the godfathers of easy core. Yeah, the album Catalyst, in particular, the song "At Least I'm Known for Something," which would also probably be my favorite Newfound Glory song. Um, is incredibly influential to the easy core subgenre. It came out in 2004, and I would actually consider "At Least I'm Known for Something" to be the first true easy core song.
Yeah,
It's also, in my opinion, probably the only one of their songs that went full easy core. Because it's got like the chugging, it's got like a breakdown. It doesn't have screaming, but it's got pretty much all the stuff you would expect.
yeah. I mean, there's some songs off of Not Without a Fight that has some ball and breakdown, such as "I'll Never Love Again" and "Such a Mess." Those shits go pretty freaking hard.
And there is, now that I'm thinking about it, there is also that one EP from 2008. I can't remember the name of it.
Tip of the
Tip of
iceberg.
the iceberg. I thought that's what it was, but I didn't want to be wrong.
There's,
um,
yes,
I
in the
very much
genre.
I very much enjoy the song "Dig My Own Grave," which I would probably also say would probably be. I would probably consider that one full easy core as well.
Yes, and the song "Tip of the Iceberg" that also has a breakdown as well. But yes, Newfound Glory is yes, they're definitely they planted the seeds for this genre back in '04. I mean, they termed they coined the term easy core anyway, so you have to bring them up
Yeah, so they're
regardless. You know what I
they're
mean?
they're definitely important to the easy core scene.
When easy core was, I guess, making its waves, they were when every band was going neon or like mall emo-y, as Punk Rock NBA said, Newfound Glory were on a side quest by planting the seeds of easy core in between a all American Rejects piano rock album sprinkled in there.
Well, that was after the fact. That wasn't Catalyst. That was their next album, Coming Home.
I said yes, but I said their
I
catalyst,
I
sprinkled
know
the
that's what you
seed.
meant. I know that's what you meant. I was just clarifying.
Oh yes, and then they did the easy core tour with Newfound Glory, 4 Years Strong, A Day to Remember, Circa Survive, not Circa Survive, freaking what's the band? You know what? I'm gonna keep talking. I'm gonna look it up real quick.
So, um, if we're not counting Newfound Glory, because although I definitely do think they are definitely the most important top 40 band in the creation of Easy Core, I wouldn't necessarily consider them an Easy Core band myself. So, not counting them, who would you say your favorite was?
Chunk No Captain Chunk.
Okay, fair
Very
enough.
simple. I have been as I mentioned in the 2020 podcast. I said the entire album is a most of the 2020 playlist seems to be Just Surrender and Chunk. So I'd be very weird or hypocritical or contradicting if I said it wasn't Chunk No Captain Chunk because they go in.
Fair enough. And I also, before we move on to the Sad Boy, I just also want to shed some light on the Wonder Years' first album because it is an easy core album and it is my favorite release from them. Um, yeah, before they put out the Upsides, they had an easy core album called Get Stoked on it, which yeah, it was full easy core and it was silly, it was fun. It was basically everything you would expect. It was 2007. And unfortunately, they have disowned the album. It is not on Spotify. It does exist on YouTube, I believe. It's not on Spotify anymore. And it's just unfortunate because I think that album is just something else.
Oh yes, and I found the band I was thinking about was Crime and Stereo. By the way,
Okay, gotcha.
I just got those C and an S. So I got like kind of like confused there. But that tour is what caused beef between 4 Years Strong and A Day to Remember, which led to some diss songs.
Oh, very nice.
Because when that tour first came out, 4 Years Strong was like, I guess, the quote unquote bigger band. So they got the highest support. Remember blew up, and then because that's when I guess when Homesick came out, and then they bumped 4 Years Strong to like the lower time slot, and then 4 Years Strong got really pissed off, and there was a whole bunch of beef between them. And the song Second Sucks is about 4 Years Strong, and the song Paul Revere's Midnight Ride is about A Day to Remember. So it's a cool little
I
beef
do
there.
enjoy the song Paul Revere's Midnight Ride.
Yes, and if you look at the Second Sucks music video, I like to think there is a couple of nods like against 4 Years Strong when they have like lumberjack guy because like they have a guy with a flannel and a big ass beard, and they also got
Yeah,
keyboard warrior, which 4 Year Strong had a synthesizer back then.
that is pretty much 4 Year Strong's aesthetic, as they are lumberjacks with their beards and shit.
Yeah, so I remember there was like a couple of like I feel like this is towards 4 Year Strong in that video because the whole aesthetic of that music video is supposed to be like a fighting video game. But yeah, I just thought that was just an interesting little tidbit since I was bringing up that tour. But yes, Chunk's definitely my favorite easycore band, and easycore is definitely I feel like a relic of the '09 to 2000, and I'm gonna go 12, 13 because I mean Chunk was still making album, was still made a my favorite album by them in
Well, yeah, I
2000.
mean, it's not a strict time frame. I mean, Settle Your Scores didn't drop their first album until 2016. I would definitely consider them easy core. How popular they are, I don't know, but yeah, it's just because it's not a strict time frame. But yeah, definitely the peak I would say would be 2007 to 2011.
Yeah, that's when A Day to Remember was on top of the world.
Yeah.
Ironically, like the one like easycore band that I and don't attack me in the comments, don't like them.
Yeah, I don't really like them too much either.
But yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I guess with that we can move on to the sad boy era. And this is, I guess, the last one we're gonna talk about because I really don't have a whole lot to say on soft grunge other than I really don't like it.
yeah,
Um,
it's forgettable.
yeah, and then I don't really want to talk about Top 40 2.0 because it's still growing.
We already talked about that in the beginning anyway.
So yeah, so I think this is gonna probably be the last one we talk about, the sad boy era. And
Mm-hmm.
what would you say your favorite from this era is?
There's a lot of bands I like from this era. This era has a lot of nostalgia for me because before these bands blew up, this was like the local scene for me, and I felt like I finally had like a new drive through that I was with. So a lot of these bands hold a very strong nostalgic and youthful like bliss because it's like once a week I was
At the risk of sounding corny, they hold a special place in your heart.
yes, but I would either go I Call Fives or Man Overboard. In particular, the Real Talk album is probably my favorite album from this era.
Yeah, I think with this era, I don't really have so much a favorite band because most of the bands kind of went to shit after a few albums.
Yes, because
Uh,
they turned into the soft grunge bands.
yeah, a lot of them turned into soft grunge. I guess if I have a favorite, it's probably Man Overboard because they never like really boarded the soft grunge train. Like their new stuff isn't as good as their old stuff, but they never really had an album that was just made me go, "This is awful."
Yeah, like that was a problem with Man Overboard. Is they kind of like I listened to it, I'm like, it's not as good as Real Talk or even the self-titled. You know what I mean? It's just like it's just more of
Yeah,
the same.
yeah,
I just don't like.
because a lot of the bands from this era had like a really great first album or first EP, and then boarded the soft grunge train, such as like Turnover, Fireworks, um, even the Wonder Years' new stuff is kind of in the similar vein.
Well, it's definitely has the aesthetic and definitely has that condescending bullshit that the Wonder Years gives.
Oh yeah, the Wonder Years are definitely hipsters.
Like
That
I
much
love
is clear.
like the Wonder Years. I'm gonna just like straight up just like roast the singer real quick, Soupy. That I like the lyrics are so like first world problems, like woe is me, even though I have a great life bullshit. Because the man talks about all the time, like how he wishes he had a normal life and a normal kids and a normal job. I'm like, bro, you were an English teacher. You quit that to become a band. You can obviously go back to teaching. It's life. It's like, so
Yeah,
miss me with that bullshit, Daniel Campbell.
miss me with that bullshit. We have a call out live on the podcast.
My second one, first called out Mr. Hoppus couple like a month, like
Yes,
a year ago.
yes,
But
I remember that.
yes, but I just but like yeah, definitely Man Overboard and like I Call Fives only had one full length, so they couldn't really went out on top. And all their EPs are all quality. I mean, first things first, their EP with James Corby is, in my opinion, their best. And I also like the band True Things, even though they never left the local scene. But that was the guy James Corby's band after he left I Call Fives. And like a lot of these bands like Handguns, they held a special place because I was seeing them in like the Berlin VFW or like the Test Tube in front of like 20 people, and like a year later they're playing at Warp Tour and everything. So it's kind of like
Yeah,
weird because that
it's
was my
cool
first
to think
experience.
like yeah, like I was there at the beginning.
So that was my first experience of like, bro, I was the only person wearing this shirt in school. Now everybody's rocking Man Overboard shirts. I used to get told to take off my Defend Pop Punk shirt twice a week that has the AK on it. Then everybody else is wearing it, and then no, but then they couldn't stop it once it became big. Like, I remember I saw the Wonder Years in the Cherry Hill Mall Hot Topic acoustically in January, or like late December of 2009, before the Upsides even came out, and it was quite intimate. It was like only like 15, 20 people, so that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, good times indeed.
Then they became like, I guess, like the biggest of the era, which sucks,
Yeah, I would
but
definitely
whatever.
say either the Wonder Years or the story so far, but I would probably give it to the Wonder Years because I feel like when people think about like this era, the Wonder Years is definitely the name that sticks out.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's a bunch of other bands from this, like A Loss for Words, uh, bands I never really like got gained any real like this time next year, in my opinion, was one of the more criminally underrated bands from this era that nobody seems to talk about anymore.
Yeah, this
They were
time next
great.
year is really really good.
Uh, like I said, a lot of these bands were just like, I look at my CDs and like it was just like a, I guess, a better time. Not to sound like weird because it seems like pop punk was on the verge of like an explosion again, and then it just suddenly died and went to soft grunge.
Oh yeah, and then I guess I'm not gonna spend too much time on soft grunge, but yeah, soft grunge is just I don't like it.
Yeah, so I guess what are your like favorite songs or releases from the sad boy era?
Well,
You
definitely
know,
yeah, Mano's Real Talk is a good one. I do
yeah,
also enjoy that first Fireworks EP.
yes, we are
Um,
everywhere. I think it's called. That's a great.
yeah. Um, this time next year, I can't remember the name of it, but it's the one with New Sensation
Oh,
and
I think it's like road maps and heart attacks.
yeah, and I believe it's also the one that has like Alex in Wonderland.
Yes, yes. This time next year, this
Yeah.
time.
Um,
Sorry, I'm just
that's
going
okay.
just to kind of
And
confirm.
even though I think the Wonder Years currently is pretty shit, I do quite enjoy the upsides.
Yes, the upsides also had a very magical feeling because that was like road maps and heart attacks. That was correct. Yes, because I got the upsides day one in a January, I believe it was 15th, 2010. I don't know why I remember that, but I do. So I
Okay, so
remember buying that.
that's almost exactly 11 years ago.
Yes, I remember I bought that CD with my mom at the Hot Topic, and like I bought it. I opened it up, and there was no freaking disc in the case. And they were saying, and the lady at the desk said, like, yeah, people are having that issue that there's like no disc in their CD case. I said, how do you mess that up? Like, you buy a CD, you expect a CD. It's not like they forgot the lyric book or something, or like some
Yeah,
other
like
inlay.
this
Like,
is the product.
the product is the CD. That's like buying a video game and like, oh, well, it came with all the other goodies, but there's no disc in there. It's like, okay, well, to be fair, I just want to listen. You know what I mean? Uh, but yeah, I mean, road maps and heart attacks. That so yeah, the one do you like for the solid like 1 or 2 years. Sad boy era was one of my favorite eras of music. Just because I lived through the scene. Like, I grew up like almost with these bands. Like when I was like 14, a freshman in high school, these bands were like nobodies. And then when I became a senior in high school, they were selling out tours, which gave me a real gatekeeper mentality, which made me kind of abandon it. And then recently I came back towards it.
Yeah, there is a lot of good stuff in here. I definitely hated on the Sad Boy era as well because I was going basically also being pretty much a gatekeeper. Oh, well, if it didn't come out in the early 2000s, it sucks. But then once I really opened up to it, I really did start to enjoy it.
Yeah, there's
There's
some really good gems sprinkled in there.
yeah, and now yeah, I laugh at old me because now, like, dude, like, I'm happy that there's newer shit. Like,
Like,
yeah, contrast that to now with the current Top 40 2.0 era. And now I'm like embracing the new shit. Yeah, it might be a little bit different. Yeah, if I'm being completely honest, I probably would prefer, to listen to like Newfound Glory and shit, but I am embracing the new shit. I love it. There's a bunch of good shit. There's a ton of creative shit, and I'm looking forward to the future.
yes, sir. Yes,
But
sir.
yeah, when you're 16, you have a whole bunch of toxic mentalities.
Yeah, I guess to me, like my entire personality at that age was liking the underground pop punk scene, and then once I saw, I guess the quote unquote normies listening to it, or the former, I think my thing was like the kids who only listened to like post hardcore and screamo would make fun of me for liking pop punk in like '07 and '08. I was listening to all these underground like scene kid pop punk bands like Man of War, I Call Fies, Crosstown Rivalry and shit. And then in like 3 years later, they're all rocking Stories So Far shirts and Man Overboard shirts. I got a little like angry towards this scene, and I realized that I hate these posers. And then I stopped liking Chunk because a kid I knew liked Chunk, and I said I can't like this band because he likes them. I don't want to be associated with him. And then it was a shame because Chunk. I remember when I first found Chunk, No Kevin Chunk. I was like, "Yo, guys, there's this awesome freaking like you like 4 Year Strong, but you want them to be French. Here it is." I was like 14. Like, this was even before their first full length, and like you couldn't even get any of their merch because I didn't have a credit card and my mom didn't want to send money to France.
Yeah, so Chunk, I remember disliking for two reasons. One being I weirdly associated them with like more like the Sad Boy era, which at the time I greatly disliked. And two, I remember my one exposure to them was their god awful cover of All Star, which to this day is still terrible. But then I started listening to some of their shit coming on in my like daily mix, and I was like, "Yo, what? Was I wrong about Chunk?" Spoiler alert, I was.
Yes, so and then
What?
unfortunately, a lot of these pop punk bands in the sad boy era had tons of promise, as we mentioned earlier, went the way of the soft grunge.
Yeah, and I'm not even gonna give a favorite because I don't listen to anything from the soft grunge era.
Yeah, well, they don't deserve it. So there's that.
Because yeah, I really my least favorite era of music is like 1991 to like 1996, right? Like when grunge and alternative ruled the world. And soft grunge is really has more in common with grunge and alternative than it does pop punk. So it just is not for me. If you like this stuff, good for you. I don't. So I'm not gonna go through my favorite, least favorite.
So I guess with
Um,
that out of the way, I guess we'll talk about the top three, I guess quote unquote favorite eras of each.
yeah, that's fine with me. For me, it's actually pretty simple. And I'm not gonna put top 40 2.0 in the rankings because again, it's still budding. It's still like in its infancy. So my top three would definitely be top 40 1.0, Neon Pop, and Easy Core in that order.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I would definitely go mine at be number one. You call it top 40 1.0. I call it top 40 slash drive through era, baby, because I gotta give a shout to drive through records. Uh,
Well, yeah, when I say top 40, that's why I made the distinction earlier because top 40, I don't just mean the bands that charted. I just mean
yeah,
that whole era where it's, that was just, in my opinion, pop punk at its purest.
yes. And then number two, I would probably go mall emo slash post hardcore. And then number three would be easy core.
Okay. Very good choices.
An honorable mention going to the Sad Boy 1.0, just because I do. Yeah, but
Yeah.
those are my top three for sure.
Yeah, and then my least favorite, this should come as no surprise if you've been watching the episode up to this point, is soft grunge. Um I don't think any future era of pop punk. I don't think it could be worse than soft grunge.
Yeah, because it's hard for me to even call it pop punk, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, because A, I really don't see it as pop punk. B, even if it is, like, it's still just like there could be another era, right, that comes out that's stylistically similar to some other genre that I don't like, but it would still be better than soft grunge because, as I just mentioned like 5 minutes ago, grunge and alternative are probably my two least favorite genres, like ever. So to have a pop punk subgenre that's not even pop punk but gets lumped in because of bands like Turnover and Fireworks and stuff that got their start as pop punk bands, but to not only not be pop punk but then to be based on like my legitimate two least favorite genres ever. Like I don't even get post grunge. I like to rip on it, but I do at least get enjoyment out of post grunge because of how awful it is. But regular grunge, there is just nothing about it that I can enjoy. It's just terrible. If you ever want to torture me, just play grunge.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, and the worst are the yeah. I can't stand them.
And so yeah, so soft grunge, definitely would be my least favorite of the eras. Then my second would probably be the prototype era. Although the only era that I actually don't like is the soft grunge era. But again, with the prototype, just because like I don't particularly listen to it, it's mainly music I respect, not really music I love, with
Hmm.
a few exceptions, like Billy Idol.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
What would you say your second least favorite would be?
Uh, I guess either the prototype and don't hate me because I don't listen to it. Just then I don't listen to Neon, so I guess that's just kind of an NA to me to be exact. But I mean
You
they're
are
like
now you are now an enemy of T Will Official.
hey man, infighting, it's beautiful. We need drama. It's called tanking for viewers. Uh, but I mean, I don't really listen to Neon, so I can't really say I like it or dislike it. And the prototype, I mean, there's some stuff in there that sprinkled through that I enjoy, but other than that, I mean, it's all really kind of well, it all exists to me, and there's certainly bands and
Yeah.
songs.
Yeah, and again, I just want to stress the only era I actually actively dislike is soft grunge. Other than that, it's I either love it or at worst, it just exists. There's nothing else I dislike. I
Yeah,
don't
like with
I don't
Neon, like
hate I don't hate the Ramones. I just don't really listen to them either.
yeah, so like Neon, I don't dislike it. Like I don't like every time you play it, I don't go, "Why are we listening to this?" It goes, "Okay, cool. This is fun." But I'm not like, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's like I don't I listen to it, but I don't actively go out of my way. You know what I mean? That's how I feel about these eras of bands.
Whatever
Although
you say, new
I
worst
will
enemy.
say I will say I probably like this like prototype more because I do enjoy Neon adjacent bands a bit. Like I do love Hit the Lights, and I do like the first few all time lows. So I would say Neon is right below Easy Core.
Okay, fair enough.
Yes, I respect the scene.
And I am looking very much forward to where the future holds. If Top 40 2.0 gets more traction, which I do think it will. If maybe something else comes through and makes some traction. I don't know, but I'm very excited for the future. I think pop punk's actually maybe not in objectively great spot, but it's definitely in an optimistic spot.
There's definitely seeds.
And I'm excited to see what the future holds.
Yes, me too, sir. Me too. Hopefully,
But
when things open back up, hopefully the scene rejuvenates. Hopefully, local bands get back, and hopefully, the bands keep making start charting, and hopefully the scene rejuvenates.
yeah, I'm really optimistic for the future of the genre. But yeah, I guess with that being said, that's it for today. Unless you have anything else you want to add.
I just want to say is thank you for listening. Remember to keep the eyes peeled for the new channel that'll be dropping February 1st.
Yes, I did want to say that. So yeah, February 1st. Um, gonna link it in the description. The link to the new channel. Go sub it up because February 1st, all the episodes are moving over. I do appreciate everybody that subbed to this channel. If you want to unsub, I understand, but I would really appreciate it if you stick around because we're gonna have some awesome gaming content coming to this channel very, very soon. If you're watching on T-Will Official, obviously, if you're watching on Pop Punk Podcast, nothing's happening because this is already the future. But yeah, if you're watching on T-Will Official, I would love it if you could stick around because we got a bunch of good stuff coming up. But yeah, if you're watching for the podcast, it's not getting deleted, it's just getting moved. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. We will catch you guys next Tuesday at noon. Peace.
See ya.